Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I will teach you how to do the baby scratch, which sounds like this. Find the start of your scratch sample and note the position of the tape marker. I've queued up the R sound from the scratch tools included with the software, which starts just before the 6 o'clock position. I normally position my hand near the outside of the jog wheel using these two fingers. For this scratch we don't use the crossfader, so open it and leave it open. That's the basic technique covered. Now let's hear how it sounds over a beat. For example, Ah Yeah, which is the next sample in the Scratch Tools track. This will add a new dimension to the baby scratch, and it sounds like this. Now let's practice together over a beat. If you'd like to dive in deeper with learning how to scratch, visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do drops, which sound like this. For this scratch, you need the scratch sample track playing. Locate the start of your scratch sample. I'm using R, and take note of the position of your record marker. Mine is at 6 o'clock. Pitch the tempo slider down to slow the sample track down, which will give you more time to work with the jog wheel. We don't need to use the crossfader for this scratch, so open it and leave it open. Release the record at the start of the sample and then stop the record with your hand just before the sound ends. Then pull the record back to the start of the sample. Let's see that again. This particular sample plays for about a half rotation of the jog wheel, so if you move your hand around by that same amount when you let your sample play, when you pull the jog wheel back, your hand will be back to roughly the same starting position on the jog wheel, which means that you don't have to adjust your hand position each time. To achieve this, make sure that the sample is queuing up at the start position. Try using different samples to get a feel for the different hand movement timings required.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. Now let's try it together. I will do the drop for 4 bars, then leave a 4-bar gap for you to copy what I do. As always, feel free to experiment with your own patterns as you gain confidence. Once you've mastered drops in time to a beat, you can mix them together with baby scratches. With just these two techniques alone, you can create a range of different combinations and patterns. For example, baby, baby, drop, baby, drop, baby, drop, and drop, drop, baby, drop. Let's hear how each of those combinations sounds over a beat. Let's try those combinations together. I'll scratch for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to scratch for 4 bars. We've now covered the scratch fundamentals, the foundation onto which all other scratch techniques are built. Make sure you practice and concentrate on getting your scratches in time with the beat and build up your jog wheel hand control. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the forward scratch, which sounds like this. The forward scratch is the first scratch where we combine using the crossfader at the same time as using our jog wheel control hand. This technique is a combination of using the drop, which you learnt in a previous video, together with opening and closing the crossfader. Find the beginning of your sample, I'm using R, and make sure that the track is playing. Pitch the tempo down, open the crossfader. If if you're scratching with your crossfader reversed or hamster style like me, you open it this way. And if you're scratching with your crossfader in regular, you open it this way. Once the crossfader is open, let the record play forward just like you did with the drop. Then when you get to the end of the sample, close the crossfader and immediately stop the record with your hand like this. The next step is to pull the jog wheel back to the sample starting position while the crossfader is closed. Because the crossfader is closed, it cuts off the reverse sound. With this scratch, we only want to hear the forward sound of the record, so let's try that a few more times. Once you can do this slowly, the next step is to increase the speed.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
Or just the beginning R part.
I.
Use a variety of samples and have some fun experimenting. Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. Now that we've broken it down and heard how it sounds over a beat, let's try practicing it together. Don't worry about getting it perfect, or if you mess up, there's really no such thing as messing up, only learning and progress. Just keep practicing. I'll do the forward scratch for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to scratch for 4 bars. Let's go.
Oh yeah.
That wraps up the forward scratch. Hopefully you're starting to see how the crossfader can be used together with your jog wheel hand to create different sounds. Keep practicing this scratch and, as with the drop, concentrate on getting your scratches in time with the beat and build up your fader and jog wheel hand coordination. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from theschoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the reverse scratch, which sounds like this. Make sure you use the tape marker and look at that rather than the crossfader. Because the crossfader is closed, it cuts off the forward sound. With this scratch, we only want to hear the reverse sound of the record, hence its name. Let's try that a few more times. Once you can do this slowly, the next step is to increase the speed. Let's hear what it sounds like using a different sound. The fresh sample is a great sound to use. Find some interesting samples and experiment to get a feel for what sounds best. Now let's hear how it sounds with a beat. Now that we've broken it down and you've heard how it sounds over a beat, let's try practicing it together. I'll do the reverse scratch for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to scratch for 4 bars. Forget perfect and aim for progress. Let's go. Next up, the reverse scratch. This is a great scratch for practicing your jog wheel control. It will be really useful when you start creating different scratch combinations. With practice, you will start to get the hang of using the crossfader together with your jog wheel hand to develop the coordination which allows you to create some interesting scratch sounds. Keep practicing, and as always, concentrate on getting your scratches in time with the beat and build up your fader and jog wheel hand coordination. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the stab scratch, which sounds like this. We push the jog wheel forward with our hand in a fast movement. We're aiming for a really clean, sharp sound. Vocal samples can sound really good. The stab scratch relies on having a good fader technique, so let's look at this first before we introduce the jog wheel hand movements. Cue up the record to the start of your sample. Make sure that the crossfader is closed. The light resistance your finger provides acts like a spring and pushes the crossfader back to the closed start position. Our finger is always trying to keep the crossfader closed, like a spring. For the split second that the crossfader opens up, push the record forward in a fast motion, which creates a short, sharp sound. Our hand stays on the jog wheel at all times, and our fingers stay on the crossfader at all times. Once the crossfader is closed, rewind the jog wheel back to the start position. The reverse sound, which we do not want to hear, is eliminated. So let's see that again. To sum up, the moment we open the crossfader is the exact same time we push the jog wheel forward. Both hands should move away from you at the same time. Once you start to feel comfortable with this, you can start to bring the jog wheel back more quickly, which will help you to increase your speed. The pitch of stabs can be controlled by pushing the jog wheel forward at different speeds. Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. I'll use both a slow and fast beat to give you an idea of what the stab sounds like. Once you've mastered stabs in time to a beat, you can combine it with other techniques. For example, the forward scratch. Let me show you a few simple combinations and patterns that incorporate the forward scratch over a beat. Grandmaster DST used this combo in the track Rocket, which you could check out to get some more ideas. Another good scratch to combine with the stab is the baby, and that particular combo is known as the military scratch, which I will break down in a separate video. Now that you know how to do the stab and have seen how you can combine it with the forward, let's try it together. I'll scratch for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to scratch a reply for 4 bars. I'll start off with stabs, then gradually introduce and combine the forward scratches as time progresses. Work on keeping those stabs really clean. Let's go! Wraps up the stab scratch. Start slowly and stick with it. Keep practicing deliberately and really work on getting those stabs to sound clean and in time with the beat. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the military scratch, which is a combination of babies and stabs, which sounds like this. The military scratch is usually one of the first combos we learn. It combines the fundamental baby and stab techniques. So make sure you're comfortable with those first. You can use any combination of babies and stabs, and I'll show you some of the most common to give you a solid foundation. The reason the military scratch is a great combo to learn is because we are doing both open and closed fader techniques, which we will explore some more later. Let's break it down. I'll Our jog wheel hand performs a constant baby scratch, whilst our fader hand randomly cuts out some reverse sounds. The first pattern is a stab, baby, stab, stab pattern. Cue up your scratch sample and close the fader. Perform the stab, then open the fader and do a baby scratch. Normally we do a stab from the closed fader position, but after doing the first baby, we already have the fader open. So quickly push the jog wheel forward, then cut off the sound as you would do when doing a regular stab. Once you have done the open fader stab, finally perform a regular closed fader stab. So let's see that again. Doing an open fader stab is actually the first part of the chirp scratch, so you're building skills that will help you later on. Let's see it a few more times. Once you can do this, you can then increase the speed. So let's hear the same pattern performed double time. When you are comfortable with the movements, you can move on to using it with a beat. Once you have the basic technique down, you can change up the patterns. The next step is to make the first combo I showed you a rolling progression in the second pattern. Then move on to performing a baby stab stab continuously in a rolling manner like this. So altogether it sounds like this. The second pattern is a stab, stab, baby, stab. The fourth pattern is baby, baby, stab, stab. Let's hear each of those three new patterns over a beat. Now we have seen a good few military patterns, let's do a Q&A. I'll perform each of the patterns for 4 bars, then let you reply for 4 bars. I'll then start doing random military patterns. Feel free to come up with your own, you don't have to copy what I do exactly. That wraps up the military scratch. Practice over a beat and get the technique down. It will really help you when you come to learning the chirp scratch. If you Google military drum cadence or snare drum patterns, you can get quite a few rhythmic inspirations. Have fun with it and get creative. If you'd like to dive in deeper with learning how to scratch, visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the chirp scratch, which sounds like this. The chirp is a simple but versatile scratch that you can combine with many other scratches. It builds on the baby scratch record movement and is the first open fader scratch we learn. Let's break it down. The chirp is a symmetrical pattern which makes two sounds and differs from the other basic scratches because we concentrate on turning the sound off rather than cutting it on. Push the jog wheel forward and at the same time close the fader. Open the fader and bring the jog wheel back simultaneously. So let's see that again. Your hands make this movement, moving together at the same time. If you're scratching regular, your hands move away from you like this. As you can see, this scratch has a completely different feel to cutting the sound on. Think of it as a baby scratch which is being sharpened up by using the crossfader to turn the sound off. Simply remember, forward is off and backward is on. Start slowly and gradually build up your speed. Next, we can start making our chirps more expressive. Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. Now let's practice together over a beat. I'll do the chirp scratch for 4 bars and leave a gap for you to reply for 4 bars. I encourage you to come up with your own rhythms. You don't have to copy what I do exactly. wraps up the chirp scratch. Take your time practicing this technique, which will serve you well as we move on to combining it with other scratches. Have fun with it and get expressive. If you'd like to dive in deeper with learning how to scratch, visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course. In this video, I'll teach you how to do the transformer or transform scratch, which sounds like this. Cutting the crossfader on and off over the forward and reverse jog wheel movements. Our hand keeps the jog wheel moving forwards and backwards at all times with either slow babies or drops. The crossfader hand performs the same movement as stabs, tapping the crossfader open in short, sharp bursts. Because we are chopping the sound into small parts, use a long sample. I'm using the R sample pitched down to about -8% to give the maximum amount of time to perform the crossfader clicks. To get started, cue up your sample and close the fader. The simplest way to learn this scratch is to break it down into 3 parts. The first part involves taking your hand off the jog wheel to allow the sample to play forward and then cutting the sound on and off with the crossfader. Try using 4 clicks for now. It's easier to learn this part first because you only need to think about what your crossfader hand is doing. Once you can do that, it's time to have a go at keeping your hand in contact with the jog wheel for the forward part of the baby scratch. Finally, add in the reverse jog wheel movement. When you are comfortable with both forward and backward movements, link them up, reducing the gap in the middle to keep a steady rhythm going. Once you have mastered this, try transforming with both the drop and baby scratch hand techniques mixed up. Practice without a beat first to solidify the technique. You can click the fader on and off as many or as few times as you want. Let's hear what it sounds like with a beat. Once you can do a basic pattern, it's time to start varying the sound. You can do this by experimenting with the number of times you tap the crossfader, for example 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? How close or far apart the taps are? How long you leave the fader open after each tap? Whether you use the baby scratch hand movement or if you use the drop technique. Finally, you can also change the jog wheel speed. All of these factors allow for the creation of interesting and varied transformer patterns. There really is no set way to do the transformer scratch, just do whatever feels right and sounds good to you. Concentrate on being in time and rhythmic with whatever music you use. Let's hear some freestyle transforms over a beat. Now let's practice together. I'll scratch for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to reply for 4 bars. Get creative with those rhythms. That wraps up the transformer scratch. Have fun with it and see how many different patterns you can create and how funky and expressive you can make it. If you'd like to dive in deeper with learning how to scratch, visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the flare scratch, which sounds like this. The flare is a symmetrical pattern that makes 4 total sounds, 2 forward and 2 back, using the same open fader principles as the chirp, turning the sound off, rather than cutting it on. Find the beginning of your sample and open the fader. Push the jog wheel forward, and as soon as you hear the sound, close the fader. Open the crossfader again, and at the same time, push the jog wheel forward again. Pull the jog wheel back, and as soon as you hear the sound, close the crossfader. Finally, pull the jog wheel back and open the crossfader. You should be back to the starting position. Let's see that again. We create 4 individual sounds using 2 clicks. It will feel completely different to the previous scratches you have learnt. The next step is to perform it without pauses, keeping your jog wheel hand moving forwards and backwards smoothly in a continuous looping motion. You can hear that each fader click makes 2 sounds, which is way more efficient when you compare it to other scratches like the transform, which needs 2 clicks to make 2 sounds. It also generates a different, smoother and more rounded sound compared to a transform. There are 2 ways your jog wheel hand can perform this scratch, either by keeping it on the jog wheel at all times, or by taking it off and letting the sample play forward each time like a drop. Try both methods and then you can switch it up and be flexible. Faster flares may be easier if you keep your hand in contact with the jog wheel. You don't have to move your fader hand too much, you can just tap the fader lightly. Let's hear the flare over a beat. Try using different samples, especially vocal samples, and bear in mind that the shorter the sample is in length, the quicker you need to be with your fader clicks. Now let's practice together over a beat. I'll do the flare scratch for 4 bars and then leave a gap for you to reply for 4 bars. You don't have to copy what I do exactly, and I encourage you to express your own rhythms in time with the beat using whatever samples you wish. That wraps up the flare scratch. Take your time learning this concept and make sure that you really understand it. We will use this technique in the chirp flare combo, which is a super fun scratch to play with. The one-click flare concept also leads onto two-click flares, so make sure you practice. If you'd like to dive in deeper with learning how to scratch, visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the crab scratch, which sounds like this. The crab is a fader hand technique which produces sounds by running your fingers over the fader to cut the sound in sharply, like this. Each finger slides across the fader and snaps it open briefly to make a sound, whilst the thumb acts like a spring. I'll show you a closed fader technique which uses 3 fingers, which creates a tight, choppy, stuttering sound. We start with the fader closed and end with it closed. Each finger movement makes one sharp sound. Our finger provides light pressure to keep the fader closed. Next, lift your forefinger. The light pressure from your thumb will open the crossfader slightly. Next, snap your ring, middle and index fingers over the fader in a smooth and controlled manner, like this. End with the fader closed and your index finger providing light pressure against the fader. We are now back to the starting position. You should hear 3 distinct clicks of the fader. The key with the crab scratch is not to be too forceful with the fader and instead to relax your hand as much as possible. It can be quite hard to perform slowly, so just dive in and give it a go and course correct as you get moving with it. Whichever crossfader style you scratch with, once you understand the fader hand technique and have tried it out a few times, it's time to use it with a sample. I find the easiest way to practice the fader hand movement with a sample when first starting out is to use a continuous sound or locked groove, which I have looped up here for this demonstration. This allows you to focus purely on producing clean sounds using your fader hand technique without thinking about controlling the jog wheel at the same time. Keep on practicing until you can hear those 3 sounds consistently. I'd recommend using headphones for this to cut out the physical fader clicks so you can really tell if the sounds you create are clean and crisp. Here it is in regular. If you do not have a continuous or locked groove sample, use the longest sound you have. Cue up the sample and hit play. Release the jog wheel to play the sample, then focus solely on performing the crab fader movement like this. Rewind the jog wheel and repeat. And now in regular. Once you are creating individual clean and crisp sounds, you can start to incorporate jog wheel control. The simplest way to do this is to perform a crab on the forward and reverse jog wheel movements like this. Start with these simple jog wheel movements. You will get a much cleaner sound if you build up your speed gradually. It's really important to have good control over both your fader and jog wheel hands. Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. Now let's practice together over a beat. I'll do the crab scratch for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to reply for 4 bars. That wraps up the crab scratch. My top tip is to practice the fader hand movement often, even when you are away from the mixer. I used to do this with my hand by my side when I was walking around to really get the movements locked into my muscle memory. To start with, you may find that you get muscle burn in your thumb, hand and arm, whilst you're building up your strength and muscle memory, which is completely normal. Stay as relaxed as possible and take breaks as you need to. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from theschoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the slice scratch, which sounds like this. The slice scratch is an important foundation scratch which forms the basis for many combos such as seesaws, boomerangs and the autobahn, and it is definitely worth taking the time to understand this technique. There are two slices you can perform, the forward slice and the reverse slice. Find the start of your sample and close the fader. Open the fader and at the same time push the jog wheel forward. Next, pull the jog wheel back and at the same time close the fader. This creates two sounds. It sharpens up the start and end of the baby scratch by cutting the sound off at the start and end points. The reverse slice starts with the jog wheel positioned at the end of the sample. Again, we create two sounds. Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. I personally don't use the slice repeatedly over and over in my freestyles, and you can use it however you want. Now let's practice together over a beat. I'll perform the slice scratch for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to apply for 4 bars. Try both the forward and reverse slice and try using different samples. wraps up the slice scratch. It's an important building block scratch that features in many combos, so keep practicing so you can add this important technique in your scratch vocabulary. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the tear scratch, which sounds like this. You can leave your fader open for this tutorial. The forward tear is the simplest pattern to learn, which is 1 tear forward and 2 tears back. The reverse tear is the complete opposite of the forward tear, so 2 forward and 1 back. Once you can do both forward and reverse tears, you can try clover tears, which are simply 2 tears forward and 2 tears back. The next step is to try 3 or 4 forward and backwards tears. Next, start creating combinations of any number of tears, forwards and backwards, that you can think of, timed however you wish. Here are some examples to get you going. The only real limitation is the length of your scratch sample and how many times you can chop up the sound on the push forwards or pull back. See what patterns you can come up with. Drop tears are a great way to start combining the tear with other scratches. Simply play the sample forward and then perform 2 tears on the reverse. The next technique you can try is to combine drop tears with fades. So play with it and have some fun. This is a great way to end a phrase of scratches in a freestyle. Let's hear how tears sound over a beat. Now let's practice together over a beat. I'll perform tears for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to reply for 4 bars. Feel free to do any number of tears in any combination and timing that you want. wraps up tears. Keep practicing because the increased jog wheel hand control you develop will help your scratching become more expressive. If you'd like to dive in deeper with learning how to scratch, visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the dice scratch, which sounds like this. The dice, or dicing, builds on the tear scratch by combining it with transform style fader clicks to create a more controlled, sharp sound. Make sure you're comfortable with both the transform and the tear scratches before you move on to dicing. It sounds like this. Let's start off with the simple one tear forward and one tear back pattern. Open the fader and at the same time perform a tear forward, then immediately close the fader. Next, do exactly the same in reverse, then immediately close the fader. Let's see that a few more times. Without the fader clicks, it would sound like this. With the fader transforms or clicks added, it sounds like this. Once you're comfortable with the basic dicing principle, try one dice forward and then two dices back. The next step is to try the complete opposite of the previous pattern, so two dices forward and one dice back. Next, we can try two dices forward and two dices back. The next step is to mix it up and do your own thing with as many dices forward and backward as you want, like this. Try using different sounds. You can get some interesting effects using vocal samples. Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. Now let's practice together over a beat. I'll perform the dice scratch for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to reply for 4 bars. That wraps up the dice scratch. Keep practicing this scratch, which is used in more advanced combos such as the boomerang and swing flares. If you'd like to dive in deeper, visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the 2-click flare, which sounds like this. Firstly, the forward jog wheel movement and fader clicks. Secondly, the reverse jog wheel movement and fader clicks. Find the beginning of your sample and make sure the fader is open. Push the jog wheel forward, and as soon as you hear the sample play, click the fader off and on twice to cut the sound into 3. Stop moving the jog wheel near the end of the sample. Rewind the jog wheel, and as soon as you hear the reverse sound, cut the fader off and on twice to once again cut the sound in 3. So let's see that all together again. Focus on executing the 2 clicks over the baby scratch jog wheel movements. Once you're starting to create 3 clean sounds consistently in a continuous looping motion, notice how just 2 fader clicks creates 3 sounds, which is way more efficient than the transform, which needs 3 clicks to make 3 sounds. We can also perform this scratch by taking our hand off the jog wheel for the forward movement, then rewinding it as normal. Try both methods, and then you can switch it up and be flexible. Faster flares tend to be easier if you keep your hand in contact with the jog wheel at all times. Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. Now let's practice together over a beat. I'll perform 2-click flares for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to reply for 4 bars. That wraps up the 2-click flare. Keep practicing to build up your technique consistency and flow. If you'd like to dive in deeper with learning how to scratch, visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty from schoolofscratch.com, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the twiddle fader technique, which can be used to create the 2-click flare, which sounds like this. It is simply a 2-finger crab which uses the middle and index fingers to snap the sound off and on. If you can already do the crab, you will most likely be able to do the twiddle. The reason we might use the twiddle is because it allows us to create fader clicks more quickly and with less effort than if we use our wrist. Start with the fader open, pushed in slightly using your thumb. We end naturally with the fader open. Once you have the basic idea of the fader clicks, the next step is to try it out with a sample and jog wheel hand movements to create some sounds. The 2-click flare orbit is a symmetrical pattern that makes 6 total sounds, 3 forward and 3 back. You can learn to do this scratch by breaking it into 2 parts. Firstly, the forward jog wheel movement and the twiddle fader clicks. Secondly, the reverse jog wheel movement and the twiddle fader clicks. Cue up your sample and make sure the fader is open. Push the jog wheel forward, and as soon as you hear the sample play, do a twiddle to cut the sound in 3. Next, we will do exactly the same fader technique over the reverse jog wheel movement. It makes 3 sounds forward and 3 sounds back. Place your focus on executing the twiddle over the baby scratch jog wheel movements. Once you are starting to create 3 clean sounds consistently, you can start to link up both forward and reverse movements in a continuous looping motion. You can also perform this scratch by taking your hand off the jog wheel for the forward movement, then rewinding it as normal. You will probably find that the twiddle allows you to create clicks more quickly and more effortlessly than with the wrist style, which means that your 2-click flares will automatically become faster and with less effort. Try using twiddles using different samples, and bear in mind that if the sample is shorter in length, you need to be quicker with your fader hand. Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. Now let's practice together over a beat. I'll perform 2-click flares using the twiddle for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to reply for 4 bars. Up the twiddle. My top tip is to practice the fader hand movement often, even when you are away from the controller, to really get the physical movements locked into your muscle memory. If you'd like to dive in deeper with learning how to scratch, Visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course. Hey, I'm Emma Shorty, and in this video I'll teach you how to do the chirp flare combo, which sounds like this. The chirp flare is one of the first combos we learn. It's simply a chirp followed by a one-click flare. To do a chirp flare, create a chirp followed by a one-click flare forward and a one-click flare backward. We create 6 sounds in total, 2 from the chirp, 2 from the flare forward and 2 from the flare backward. So let's see that again. Once you can do this basic technique, you can start working on the timing to really bring it to life. Let's hear how it sounds over a beat. I'll show you 3 timing options: a slow version with a pause, a slow version without a pause, and finally a faster triplet timed version. When you've got to grips with the timings, try experimenting using different samples. Now let's practice together over a beat. I'll perform chirp flares for 4 bars, then leave a gap for you to reply for 4 bars. wraps up the Chirp Flare Scratch combo. Hopefully this technique has given you the feel of how combos are created and might give you some ideas of how you can start to develop your own combos. You could try swapping out a flare for a transform or another scratch of your choice. The possibilities are only limited by your imagination. If you'd like to dive in deeper with learning how to scratch, visit schoolofscratch.com and sign up for my complete How to Scratch course.